Yo, Spatchcock Nation, we have a special episode here today. And what we want to focus on first, before we introduce our guest, our friend Eboni Britt, I want to talk about why we're doing this. And it's an uncomfortable time in the world, but change only happens when we're uncomfortable. So during this thing, you're going to see me get quite uncomfortable. And that's what we're trying to do, to create this type of dialogue. So for our personal brand, my personal brand in particular, but also the brand of the show that Alex and I put together, is heavily influenced by other cultures. For me personally, the Black community has had a massive influence on a bunch of things, like my music choices, the way that I speak, the way that we talk in the show, the way we deliver things. This is important. So, you know, the biggest problem that a white male that has had a pretty good career and worked in creative fields and stuff, the biggest thing I often have to worry about is avoiding cultural appropriation. So what we want to talk about is acknowledge the massive influence that these communities that are at risk have had on us. Like Cajun and Creole cooking are a huge part of what we do. And a bulk of Creole cooking is based on slave recipes. So as we go through this, we need to make sure we're doing a better job as a brand and as people to engage in the conversation. So that's why we're doing this special limited edition episode. And our guest today is our friend Eboni Britt. So she's friends with Alex and I had the pleasure of seeing her earlier this week, and get to see her twice in a week. That's a big pleasure here. So Eboni has worked in the same field that I have for a long time. She's a big successful star in it. She's at Syracuse University. She plays two pivotal roles right now. She's the executive director of marketing and strategy. And right now she's currently on a special assignment to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And what happens is, historically, in Eboni's history anyways, she is a vocal leader. She is a person of action, but she's not afraid to speak her mind. And this has become something that's added value to a lot of communities. And now it's kind of needed more than ever. So we want to try to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to contribute to this, being that we're two white males who grew up with some white privilege, obviously. And we acknowledge that there's more that we can do. So if this takes away from some followers, so be it, because it's the right thing to do. We're trying to stay on that side. So Eboni, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing really well. Excited to be here. Was very honored to receive the request. You guys are doing dope things in the community, and I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to start throwing some questions out here. And the first one we're going to talk about is, as we're dealing with this stuff, what's the best way to interpret this crisis, the Black Lives Matter movement, the way that our culture right now is at a dangerous crossroads? What's the best way, do you think, to interpret that?
So I guess for me, Matt, the word interpret, I'm struggling with a little bit, right? Because when I think of interpretation, I think of when I was in Cuba and don't know a lick of Spanish, and then my 15-year-old daughter had to interpret things for me because I had no clue what was going on. And I just don't think that the majority of Americans can honestly say that they do not know what's going on and have not known what's been going on for a really long time, right? So people, I think, have been willfully and woefully ignorant for a really long time. So the word interpret to me is a little hard, because I don't think that there's a lot of interpretation necessary. People are getting murdered. People have been getting murdered. People are discriminated against. Racism exists, right? That's always been the case. I also don't necessarily think that we're at a dangerous crossroads in our communities right now. I think that we are at a wonderful crossroads in our community right now. This has needed to happen for a very long time, right? And it's cyclical. So we're looking 40 plus years since the civil rights movement. You know, we put Band-Aids on things, think that things have gone away, don't address things, turn our backs on things, and you just can't get rid of trauma. And what our country is responding to right now is trauma. It never goes away. If you don't address it, it will always spring forward. So I don't necessarily look at it as dangerous. I look at it as, this is necessary. Like, we have to go through this. It always gets worse before it gets better. So this is required for us to get to where this country really needs to be.
Okay, so I love that answer. You know, maybe interprets a weird, you described that really well. To me, where I see some danger in this, though, is you made a good point about, like, this happens and we'll talk about times it's happened in the past with Trayvon Martin, different situations where this thing will come up and we'll have a problem with systemic racism. But it's funny because people look at it like, we have a problem, we have to fix it. No. It's been a problem for a long time. And until you fix it, to your point, it continues to come up, right? And that's something that I think is an issue here. And then people find other reasons, like, people are anti-police. It's not about an anti-police situation per se, right? But there are bad actors in that, and because of systemic racism that's led to that. So people want to look for the smaller parts and not see the bigger picture. We have a problem of racism in this country that needs to be fixed. And I like how you address that, and I like how hopeful you are, because that's a good thing.
Yeah, and if I could just on the anti-police thing really quickly, when you think about systemic racism, right? It's a structure. And the individual person within that structure really doesn't matter that much, because the people that are part of the oppressive system all play their part, whether they want to or not. I look at the police as the same thing, right? I don't look at individual police. What we should be seeing, I think, right now is an outcry from the majority of police officers who are supposed to be in the field to serve and protect. They should be outraged. These people that are murdering innocent, unarmed people should not represent them, but we don't really hear that like we should. It's not about individuals to me. It's about the system, right? They're working within a structure, and one police officer, 2, 5, whether they're good or not, really can't change that structure. So that's really when we talk about anti-police, it's like, it's not, I'm against officer XYZ. I have an issue with the structure, and that needs to shift.
Yeah, okay, that's a great way to approach that too, because it is structurally based. And the thing is with that is the structure overall, like, we're talking about like the police are taking the brunt of this, when actually it's true across education, across every single platform, every structure, every institution that's in there. So that's what needs to be addressed. And that brings us to another question actually that you brought up, which I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this. So why is George Floyd different than Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Tamir Rice, or Rodney King?
So I don't think George Floyd is different, right? The response to George Floyd is different, but I mean, for me, I don't think my heart could have been more broken by Trayvon Martin. And wait, let me pause on that, because Tamir Rice was the exact same age as my daughter was when he was murdered for having a toy gun, right? I couldn't have been more heartbroken. And I'm heartbroken every single time that it happens. So the response is different, and I love it, right? I love it. I love the response. Like we got to address things, but for me, it really hasn't been different. So I'm kind of wondering for everyone else, like, well, why is this one different? Why is this the one that has made people respond? You know what? And let me take that back. I'm going to immediately contradict myself. The other difference is the environment that we're in right now. Okay, we're in a completely divisive environment that I actually think, again, going back to it has to get worse before it gets better, 100% necessary. If we were not in the kind of political framework that we were in right now, if people were not so like absolutely split, we wouldn't get to this point today. Like, it had to happen. So as quickly as I said, it's not different for me. I guess it is different because the time in which it happened, it's like everything came together in the appropriate manner to make everybody kind of take notice.
My answer is super similar to that, with a caveat, because that's a great way to visualize that, because it was going to happen no matter what. I don't want to say this needed to happen. Someone doesn't need to die for change to occur, but unfortunately, sometimes something drastic must occur. Danger, trauma must happen to initiate change. For me, I think about this versus the Trayvon Martin situation, and I always get like teary-eyed thinking about when my man Barry Hussey, born on the same day as Matt Reed, August 4th, he's part of Teammate 4, talked about the Trayvon Martin situation. He said, "This is what my son would look like." And it's like, man, this is shocking and upsetting to hear that. So to that though, too, that was like, here's this guy, and it wasn't part of a bad dude, no doubt, but it didn't represent this huge infrastructure of a system, to your point about a structured system. So it was like a big deal, outrage, and then people kind of brushed it aside. To your point, though, too, about change, because of social media, because of the divisiveness in our country, I agree so much that this is different than those situations, because like the Rodney King riots, which, and by the way, someone the other day said something to me that he goes, you know what's most memorable about the Rodney King riots was the music that came out of that, like Sublime and these things. And I was like, you know what, that shit is dope. That music is super fresh, but that shouldn't be the biggest takeaway, should not be cool music out of a situation. So the opportunity for us to change from it, I think, is the circumstances. You described it way better than I did, but that's a big thing. So in that end, then, I mean, what in terms of support, right? People keep talking about thoughts and prayers, but thoughts and prayers don't stop action. So what are some things that we can do? You can make donations and stuff, but what do you think that people can be doing to help us move in the right direction?
First and foremost, educate yourself. Like this thing has so many layers because exactly as you said, we've got law enforcement, we've got healthcare. We just came out of COVID. We saw the disparities and how that impacted Black communities and people of color with COVID, right? We've got education, like economics. Everywhere that you look, there are disparities and racism is built into that every which way and fashion, right? So there's so many layers to it. The first thing that you have to do is just begin to educate yourself, right? And by educate yourself, I don't mean like, you know, call your Black colleague that you've been cool with and ask them to educate you on what that's the easy way out, right? And it actually puts a lot more burden on the shoulders of your Black colleagues. There's a difference between Black colleagues and Black friends, right? If you have Black friends, you actually already are on, you get it, right? If you have Black people in your life and you have to call them and ask them, what is it like to be Black and how do you feel right now? They're probably not your friends, okay? So first thing you need to do is you need to educate yourself. Put the onus on yourself to educate yourself. The internet, you can go all day long, right? White Fragility for white people, I think is a fantastic book. The New Jim Crow is unbelievable, talks about mass incarceration. One vote, one person, no vote, talks about the voting system and how strategically that they've stripped all of the rights out of the Voting Rights Act. I mean, there's so many directions that you can go in just to begin to educate yourself. I think a lot of people need to really, their eyes need to really be opened, right? Definitions are changing. The way that we look at definitions of things like racism and even white supremacy, they're evolving as these structures have also been flexible and evolved, right? So I think that's the first thing that you really need to do is educate. And secondly, I had a colleague ask me the other day, she said, you know, Eboni, like I really need help speaking out. I really want help in how to speak out. And I said, you know, let me ask you something. If you were walking in the park with your family, she has young kids and your husband, and a stray dog was at the park, and a stranger came up and kicked the shit out of the stray dog, would you say something? Absolutely. I said, so if you know how to speak up for an animal, you certainly know how to speak up for a human, right? So we know the difference between right and wrong. When something hits you in your gut and you know that it's wrong, you need to address it. You need to speak up about it. People need to stop being silent.
You know, that's going to go to our next question, because I agree, education and talking and not being silent are the two biggest keys to get a groundswell moving. But also, you need to extend the activation, right? Like talk about it now and that's cool, but don't forget this conversation. Have this conversation again in a month from now and 2 months from now, during elections, during different times. I think that's a big deal. Why is it easier to stay silent for so many people?
Well, I'm going to even speak for myself, because if I spoke up about microaggressions, discrimination, overt, covert racism, I would be speaking up all day long. I choose to bite my tongue too, right? I think that for me, it's more of the older that I've gotten, I've learned to preserve my energy. My energy is very important to me, and staying in as much as a peaceful and healthy state is of the utmost importance to me. And I realize you can't win every fight. So, you know, I choose my battles. I'm a lot more strategic probably about my battles, and I'm a lot more picky about who I choose to give my energy to. A lot of people are not interested in being educated. I have no interest in trying to educate them. But for those who are seeking out information, I certainly am a resource, and I will speak up if I think that there's an opportunity for me to elicit some change in that moment. So for me, I haven't always spoken out about every single thing. But for me, it's more about preserving energy, because it would be a constant thing for me if I was doing that.
So I get you on the energy thing. I need to work better on doing that, because I spread myself too thin sometimes. You know, my answer to that about why it's easier to stay silent is people's fear, for me personally, fear and getting out of your comfort zone. And for me, you mentioned like the dog reference is a good reference, but also too, I've definitely in my life done things that were sexist or racist or all these things. And I understand that, and I'm ashamed of that type of stuff. But I'll tell you what, I'm actually more ashamed sometimes of the things when I've stayed silent, when I could have said something and didn't. But what happens is people are afraid, perhaps like at work, maybe, you don't want to disrupt your potential career or look unfavorable in the eyes of a boss or a client. The comfort zone thing too, because a lot of times now I've seen a few people that would speak up about something, like someone might say something and be like, oh, listen, that's not how that is. And I wouldn't have expected that person to do that even 2 months ago. So we're seeing some type of change, but to me, it's a fear and a comfort zone situation. But now you're starting to see the opposite, because it's like, yeah, this is uncomfortable, but I'll be more uncomfortable if I don't say something or speak up now. And that, I think, is something that people need to remember and recall, because some people, the fear is like, I don't want the status quo to change. And as a white male, people are like, oh, well, all of a sudden now, like, I don't want to have to, like, I'm never getting a job now because I'm going to lose jobs to minorities. That's funny that people have said that. I've lost jobs that I've applied for to minorities, and I've beaten minorities for jobs. The ones that I've lost, I would not, what it should come down to is apply. For me, I've applied to positions that I believe I would be great at and would be great for me personally. So if I'm going to lose to someone else because of whatever reason, I'll take my losses, because I know I'm going to put myself in positions because it's the right thing to do. And if I lose to somebody else, so be it, I'll go somewhere else. But people have this they think of things that it's going to be an immediate role reversal. Like, oh, all of a sudden I'm going to be getting pulled over because I'm white. And it's like, look, trust me, that shit is not going to happen. Right. Like, and if you think that it is, then you're going to have to deal with it. But I mean, we have so many changes to make that this is not going to be some massive paradigm shift. And the fear is something that I think many people are stoking to try to prevent change. And that's a dangerous position that we're in, is the fear of these unknown changes. Change happens whether you want to or not. Either be a part of the change or be prepared for it or be at its mercy. And I think that's something that people just aren't ready, that they need to get ready for, because we're all suffering because of it.
And if I could really quickly, the other thing that I would say too, Matt, is that people need to ask for grace and give themselves grace, because I do feel like a lot of people are scared to do something, right? Like, you have companies that'll come out, say Starbucks, for instance, years ago when Black Lives Matter was first introduced, had a hashtag that they put on their cups, and it blew up in the whole wrong direction for them. And I kind of felt bad for them, because I'm like, now they're going to probably be hesitant to do something again because they don't want the backlash. Like, no one's expecting anyone to be an expert. I'm not an expert. No one's expecting anyone to be an expert. And I think that if you start the conversations acknowledging that, asking people for grace as you're trying to educate yourself and work through it, I think that will help to ease some of people's hesitation with wanting to speak up. I think sometimes people are just afraid to say the wrong thing. They don't want to offend. They don't want to be labeled racist, right? So it's important to speak up, and acknowledge the fact that that you might step in it, but that you need to speak up in order to know when you step in it, so you don't step in it again, right? So
I totally agree with that. Like, from a creative standpoint, I've worked on things, and I'll tell my students, like, look, don't intentionally try to create the United Colors of Benetton in every ad. There's not a formula. We need to have this and a racially ambiguous person. This person should look gay. It's like, all right, really? But like, I've been I've had conversations where I've written something and gone to a friend of mine and been like, hey, this is being written from the perspective of a Black person. Does it sound cool? And she's like, it starts out okay, but this middle part, not cool. We need to rewrite that and then go back to that. But it's the willingness to be uncomfortable to find, at least that's been my experience. So to do that type of change, why do you think that change is so important now? I mean, we're coming out of we're still in the greatest global pandemic in the past 100 years. I've heard some people be like, oh, well, dude, let's deal with that after we get out of this thing. And it's like, we got to deal with it now. Why do you think that's so important now?
Have you read Revelations in the Bible?
Of course.
Right. So change is necessary, right? If you're looking at things from that perspective. I guess, remember I was telling you there's the questions I was struggling with. I just figured out the questions I was struggling with, right? Change now. Well, change isn't important now. Change has always been important. Like it's always been important, right? I mean, now we're gonna get to this a little bit later in some of the questions I'm imagining, right, Matt? But like now the momentum is so strong, right? But in the back of my mind, I can't even really like have true faith that this is gonna really change, because this is like centuries old, right? Like we've been here as a country before. This is not the first time that we've been here, right? So change has always been necessary. Change has always, since like even before slaves were enslaved, people were captured and dragged from Africa over to this country against their will. Change was required then. It's always been required, right? So I don't know about now. I think change is always necessary. Change is always necessary. Now is just, you know, people are in the momentum. They're moving with the momentum. But, you know, I've seen a lot of memes that are very poignant in the fact that from our perspective, like this is a movement. This is not a moment in time. Like things need to shift drastically. So, and I've always felt that way, right? Things always have needed to shift. So the momentum makes it seem like now is the time, but it's always been necessary.
Yeah, I can't add to that answer. To me, the only constant in life is change. And you need to either buck up and deal with that, or you're just going to get left behind or be miserable and sad and negatively contribute to the lives of others. But which actually brings me to the next question. This is something that you brought up, which is a great question to ask, and for people that are listening to think about too. What conversations are you having? How often? With whom? And where?
Yo, Matt, like we talk, I have 3 children, and they are 23, 18, 13. In some way, shape, form, or fashion, like race comes up in our discussions every single day. I work in this environment now. You know, my kids are in a suburban school district, so there are always things to discuss from that aspect. I'm constantly having to give my kids a little duality, right? Because from a Black person's perspective, the things that are taught to you in class are not necessarily the way that things are, right? So you have to constantly like shift your kids' perspective. You know, my girlfriends, we talk about it. It's something that is in the air that we breathe, and it's in the water. We swim in the water every day. And what I would say to everybody is that it's the same for everybody else. You guys, not everybody else recognizes it. Everybody else is swimming in systemic racism. Not everybody else is willing to acknowledge it, right? People think that George Floyd is like, this is racism. No. You know, when you go to the bank, when your doctor listens to you as soon as you open up your mouth, when you can pick any school district in the world to place your kids in and don't have to worry about them being the only person of their particular race in that school district, it's impacting everybody every day. We're just painfully aware of it every day. It's something that is talked about kind of constantly in our household, and trying to ensure that, you know, we are living. Unfortunately, that's the way that we maintain kind of balance and a sense of self in a world like this.
Yeah, that painful awareness that's constant, it's upsetting to me because that's something that is not part of my life. Like I'm aware of it when something happens or one of my friends complains about it or I see somebody do something. And then I'm like, oh my God, I referenced to somebody else before, like when I get pulled over, I'm like, fuck, how much is this going to cost me? Not like, am I in danger right now? Is this guy going to not like the fact that I'm Black?
Right.
So, and in sense of being pulled over too, like going to the store, like waiting in line to get served a drink at a bar, like something that I do quite a bit. Those type of things are strange. And, you know, so what conversation am I having? I'll tell you what, how often, pretty often, trying to have them as often as I can, but with whom? So different people. A friend of mine who I posted a thing on Facebook that got both positive and negative responses about my feelings on the matter. And I said, it's Black Lives Matter, not all lives matter. All lives matter, but it's like the rainforest, right? No one says save all the forests because the rainforests are at risk. They're in danger. So that was kind of a post. And I got a lot of positive responses and comments, but I got some phone calls, some surprisingly positive from people that I didn't think would respond that way and others that were kind of negative. But that was all actually happened because my friend and I were he's Black, and we're going to do I was going to be a guest on a show that he was hosting. And he's like, I'm not feeling up to that, but you want us to go for a walk and talk. And we did, and we had a really good healthy relationship as friends and as colleagues, but really as friends. And he's like, look, I appreciate that you sent me a note, like, hey, how's it going? How you feeling? But he's like, what you need to do, he's like, he goes, that's cool because definitely, you know, you understand that I'm going through something that you might not understand, but you support it. And he goes, that's nice. But what we really need to do is talk to other white people and say, look, this is why this is a problem. And at the time I was like, yeah. And he goes, you know, and you might take some flack for it, but it was like, you know what, he's right about that. And I was a little bit upset with myself, not a little bit, I was a lot. And he's like, don't feel shame over that. You're learning now that you should do that. So I'm trying to do like one-off conversations, not necessarily coming to someone and saying, if someone's like, hey, you want to have a beer? And I'm like, yes, let's talk about why racism is a problem. But when we can bring it up like this, use a platform that we can to talk about it. But also when other people will come in and be like, oh, well, so-and-so has an agenda. And I'm like, yeah, the agenda is to stop like violence and racism. It's a pretty clear agenda, you know, like, but I try to respond instead of just being like, you know what, the thing is that I think happens to white people more so than, but I'm sure it happens to every group, but they have like what's referred to as the racist uncle. And they say something and you're like, oh, well, Sarah's always racist, so whatever, I'll just chalk it up to that, right? And I've engaged like that with my friends too, being like, that's not okay, but you know, she doesn't mean it, he doesn't mean it, whatever. And that's the point where you're like, God, we don't talk like that. And that's something that I've tried to do a little bit before this. And now I'm trying to be more, especially, you know, I don't want people to wonder, to me, it's not about being on the right or wrong side of history, but rather what's the right thing to do? I don't want someone to sit there and be like, yo, what does this guy think? What do they care about? So that to me is kind of the big deal. And where is a good question. So for me, it's talking to people, but now it's a lot of times on Zoom, but going for a walk or things like that, but also on social media. If you're like, well, I don't want to lose followers, which is an issue for us because we're this baby little show trying to grow. And we've got like really good signs of proof of concept, and it's like a fragile plant. How do we keep growing that? And if we alienate someone because we stand by this, screw it, because it's the right thing to stand by. So I think sometimes people should also be talking about this stuff on social media, and they're like, well, I'm afraid I'm going to lose some followers or friends. Well, if you believe in that, then maybe they weren't worth your friendship in the first place. It's a really tough question to ask. And you know, when you gave me that question too, is how often, and I started to map out, like I was like, oh, over the past 3 weeks, I've had like 6 conversations. And I was like, well, the answer to that is not often enough, right? If you have to count something, it means you're either doing something too much or not enough. Like if you're counting beers, you're probably drinking too much. And if you need to say, well, how many times do I talk about racism? Then you're not talking about it enough. And there's a time and a place for it, right? You don't need to like jump into like, you know, I mean, but know how to engage people, but make sure, most importantly to me, failure that I've done a lot in my life is not standing up for something when you need to at the right time. And that's the regret that I often just like, I have a problem with for myself that keeps me up at night. So you're talking about that type of question, which is great. What conversations are people having? Who are some people or someone that you think is moving the ball forward and why?
The youth. I can't even, like, I of course can shout out my 23-year-old daughter, Essence Britt, at Cream the Collective on IG. She is unbelievable things with her platform and really finding her voice and trying to promote things. But she is just representative of all these young people. I mean, when we look at SU, you know, the protesters that we had at SU were bringing issues forward on campus that the whole world would be talking about. They were talking about stuff in November, right? The youth are taking this movement, and they are. I shouldn't associate social media with just the youth, because I know it's obviously not just for the youth. But the things that I learned, that I have been like I have used Aunt Jemima pancake mix. I'm 45 years old. I have used Aunt Jemima pancake. My mom used Aunt Jemima pancake mix.
They make a good mix.
It was yesterday that I was like, why am I still, what in God's name why am I still using Aunt Jemima? And it was social media and a 20-some-year-old girl doing a TikTok on it. The youth are cracking open eyes and bringing new perspectives and maneuvering and strategizing and getting policy change and doing it in a nameless, voiceless fashion, right? You can't really identify who the leader of the Black Lives Movement is, right? The Black Lives Matter movement is. The youth are really taking this to a whole nother level. They deserve all the credit in the world.
That answer is awesome. The generation, like people always shit on the next generation coming up. Like we're Generation X. people crapping the millennials like, oh, they're just entitled snowflakes, Gen Z. Well, every generation gets hammered on, and because people are afraid of change. So the young generation now, Generation Z, the bottom millennials, their sense of social justice is amazing. Like, but even smaller, at little small micro relationship levels, their ability to form platonic friendships is just natural to them, right? Where like when, I don't know about you, but when I was in high school or college, I had a really good friend of mine in college. She and I were LinkedIn connecting the other day about something. And people were like, oh my gosh, like, are you guys sleeping together? And I'm like, no, we're just boys.
That's so
And
true. I never thought about that.
so I think they come up that way. But the problem that we have with that is people that are older need to start listening to that instead of being like, oh, these little snowflakes and their participation trophies. It's like, dude, come on. These are people that are dealing with way more than you are. And like, at a macro level, I see some people too, like people that have the so-called bully pulpit are using it correctly, like, people like LeBron and people that can speak like that. But I was watching an interview the other day, a lot of Sports Center, and Kyle Korver was talking about the NBA season starting up, and he's a white superstar, been in the league for actually he would probably like to be called a superstar. I wouldn't call him a superstar, but he's a good player, and he's a big player. So he was talking about like, look, like right now his team, the Bucks, they have a shot to win a championship, and obviously he's been playing for 17 years. That's a massive life goal for him. But he's like, if change for my teammates, and he gave a really great speech about it. I was just like, wow, this dude, and somebody commented like on a thing I was reading, because after I saw him say it, I read about it. Somebody commented like, oh, he's just saying that to make his teammates feel better. Okay, because he wants his teammates to feel good. And he knows that if he has to give up a year of playing basketball to make this better, it's the more important thing. So people that are willing to come up and talk about things, or people that are willing to apologize or acknowledge mistakes that they've made, I'm a huge NFL fan, and they've got a massive ways to go to correct this. And, and they've done made some incredibly poor decisions in a bunch of different areas. And I'm not saying that they're doing everything right now. So this is not me endorsing their decision-making process. But when someone says, yeah, we screwed this up, we're going to try to make it better, I'll at least listen to that and say, all right, let's see where you're coming from and how you're going to make that happen. So,
Agreed.
I think it's an interesting thing to see.
Yeah, all progress is progress. And it is hard to be courageous. It is hard to be courageous. It is hard to be the only one at the dinner table to stand up and say that comment was not appropriate, right? It's hard to be the one at work pushing the issues with the leaders, saying that, we're not creating an environment that is conducive to diversity and inclusion. Right? It's hard to be courageous, or to be courageous. So I get that, but courage is required. Like this type of change requires a lot of courage.
I think so too. And courage and bravery to me is just doing something when you're afraid to do it. Sometimes bravery is standing on a scale and seeing how much you weigh, right? Or courage is standing up for something and just disagreeing with someone, saying, no, I don't totally agree with what you're saying there. I think that's important. And you asked a question earlier, so we'll ask you this first and I'll answer it. But the question was, when did you first witness or experience racism, and what did you do? So tell us about that.
So as I was writing the question, my mind went right back. I'm from Colorado, and so I was born in Philly, 6 years old. We moved to Colorado. I'm in second grade, and I was young, so I probably was about 6 at the time that it happened. And I was on the playground, and this boy called me a nigger on the playground. And the ill thing is that my mom had already prepped me for when that was going to happen. So at 6 years old, my mother had already had the conversation to say, Joy, Joy's my middle name, Joy, if you get called a nigger at the school, because it was a mostly white school, probably all white school, to be honest with you. If you get called nigger at school, you tell them your mama, right? Like my mom had already, prepared me with the retort, but like the fact that, a mother has to sit down with a 6-year-old little girl and prepare her for being called a racial epithet, right, is like, I just say heartbreaking a lot. It's heartbreaking to think that, and thank God I didn't necessarily have to have those discussions with my kids at 6. We have much different discussions now, unfortunately. But to think of how difficult that must have been to my mom, a woman who moved through the civil rights movement, right, who was, a Black activist to the hilt, and then had to still sit down and tell her 6-year-old daughter, let me prepare you for when, not if, for when someone calls you nigger. So that was my incident, and I still remember it clear as day.
Thanks for sharing that, because that's just tough to hear. And I think about that question. I was watching something too, where Anthony Lynn, the coach of the Chargers, was talking about, um, now Anthony Lynn's a millionaire head football coach, and he's black, and he's like, I still, I remember the conversation I had with my son, about like, here's what happens to get pulled over. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, whoa, dude, like you're an upper class individual. Like, do you really, but you have to have that happen. So for me, not having experience like that was kind of eye opening and scary and sad. And I think about too, so for me, when I first witnessed racism in elementary school, some people were picking on somebody else. And what did I do? I didn't do anything because I didn't want to get bullied. I didn't want to get pulled into that. So I just kind of got out of the situation. And I regret that. But so I think about that type of situation. And as I get older, I'm like, I won't do that. So as I got older in high school, I might witness it a few times. And what I did was I just stopped being friends with those people that were behaving like that. But I could have done more too. And people talk about like the concept of white guilt and these things. And I don't have enough sociology, intelligence or experience to really discuss that at a grand level or speak for other people. I'm not sitting there saying, oh my gosh, I feel so guilty because I'm white. I feel guilty because of things that I could have said or done, or things that I actually did. And then back like, that's not who I am. And I try to tell people, like my students a lot of times, if you've had a great day, this happened to me many times, you're having an awesome day, things went really well, you're going to bed, everything's been good, and all of a sudden your brain's like, cool, remember that thing that you did when you were 17? And then all of a sudden you're up for 3 hours. To me, that type of thing is signs that, yeah, you did something wrong, but your moral compass is writing itself like, this is a big thing that you did, you need to fix that. So to me, that's a good question. I think a lot of people should think about, when did you first experience it or witness it? What did you do? And feel shame if you want to, but then make that actionable, right? Because there's not a person on earth, at least people that I know and respect and look up to, people that I think have done no wrong, there's things that they're ashamed of. How do you deal with that the right way? And that's something that when you sent over some of the questions you want to talk about, they're all awesome questions. That question was one I was like, you know what? Like, thinking about things that I've caused people to feel certain ways by things I've actually done or said, right? But also by lacking of doing that. And I wrestle with that. But thinking back to when you first experienced it, that's something I haven't, until I read that question, I hadn't thought about that. I've seen racism a lot of times, but it wasn't a direct question. And that's something I think a lot of people should think about. When did you first see it? And now it's also, am I seeing it now? How often am I seeing that? And what am I going to do about that? So I love that question. So earlier, you said you were more hopeful than dangerous. So in terms of that, what are you hopeful about this? What are some of the pitfalls, the dangerous things? What do you think is important going forward?
So let me preface this by saying I kind of loathe the word hope. Okay, it comes across. It to me feels weak. It's like try, like I'm going to try to lose some weight, right? Hope to me is like, well, I hope things will get better. I really prefer like faith. And for me, faith is knowing that something is going to happen, right? I have faith that, I'm going to get a promotion, right? Knowing that things are going to happen. I'm not hoping for that. Faith to me is a desire coupled with action to ensure that it's going to actually come to fruition, right? I would love to say that I have faith that things are going to change, permanently in this country. But man, we're a disappointing lot. We are a disappointing lot. So the best that I can give right now is the best that I have right now is my hope. And I do hope that things will get better. But I just go back to like if Trayvon Martin didn't get you, 17-year-old kid walking with some Skittles in his pocket and an iced tea, it's like that. Those are the things that kind of stop me from being faithful like I normally would be. But I do definitely have hope. And, the spotlight is kind of on us right now in a variety of ways. People are watching that haven't watched before. People are vocalizing things that haven't spoken up before. The world is supporting us and marching with us and is showing their solidarity. So those are all like unbelievable, I think, foundational elements for great and permanent change. And the best that I can do is hope that that's what will become.
That's Really well said. I hadn't thought about hope in that regard. And I often think about faith when I'm thinking about that. Is faith sometimes is believing in something when you might not have a reason to do so. To
Mm,
me, the rest of the
yeah.
world looking at us too, I have never, well, I was once and I corrected that, but I've never been embarrassed about being an American. In fact, I'm proud of it. Despite all our problems, we're this great nation and we're able to have these, I mean, people protesting, I can't believe I have to wear a mask. And then like, oh, why are they protesting? They should be wearing masks. Like, all right, dude, in no other country in the world can you act like this. So I love this great nation. And I think about that overall, that the world's watching us, and we're going to stumble and fall as we get through this. But I do believe that eventually we're going to, I mean, I don't think that the Black Lives Movement matter is going to be over by November. And we're like, ta-da, everything's cool and we're great. Look at us, we're great again. Because we're still a
Right.
great country, and we have been a great country. But it's going to be a messy situation. Like people that want to lose weight, I've lost weight, gained weight. You don't like go to the gym for a week and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm ripped, right? Instead, it's a long-term process that's not just working out, but it's eating and dieting. So I'm hopeful that change will happen because it's going to happen no matter what. I mean, the Supreme Court rulings with DACA and the transgender stuff the past couple of days is a little bit of a shock wave that normally, if there wasn't this protest and a massive pandemic going on, if those two things happen, people would be like, what? And it would be this massive top of the news thing. And it's like the number 4 news item. So I believe that change is happening. I'm hopeful about that. I do sense danger in the situation, in the fact that we are in a critical time for us to improve. So the danger is it's just going to stay the same as it was a few months ago. The danger is nothing changes for me. And I believe that it is going to change in incremental steps. But I think it's going to take some time for people to be frustrated and upset about it. But I really love how you were positioning that, because that's what we need to start thinking about, particularly people that actually see it, and how can we add more to it. So before we go into lightning round of some fun questions to kind of lighten things up, what's something else that anything else that you want to share, things that maybe websites people should check out, things that they can do to learn more, anything like that?
I would push people to social media. I think people are shocked in the industry that we are in. I do not watch the news. I don't watch the news. I get my news from NPR and I get my news from social media, right? So I would encourage people to, follow some new accounts. I've picked up some new accounts over the last few weeks on Instagram that are feeding me like unbelievable knowledge. People that you follow, if they see who they're following, right, and follow them. So those are ways to get great information. And I'm just I'm old school where you're never going to be able to convince me that you can learn anything if it does not come in the pages of a book, right? I don't care if it's on a Kindle. I don't care if it's an article on the internet. If it's not in a book to me, for whatever reason, I'm just not going to be convinced that you are actually retaining that knowledge. So I always tell, just read as much as you. There's so much information out here. And when I tell you, like, every book that I pick up cracks me open in so many different ways, it's unbelievable. So just educate yourself and absorb as much knowledge as you can.
Love it. Okay, so let's educate some people about you with these
Okay.
5 questions. So you are obviously super inspirational and valuable, and we just had a big emotional conversation. But you're also funny as hell, and you drop like one-liners. Sometimes I'll see you in the bar with your girlfriends, and you drop a little thing. I'm like, oh shit, that's hilarious. So I'm going to give you 5 questions. It's an either or. You pick one and why. Ready?
Pick one and why.
Pick one and why.
Okay.
Okay, so your first choice. What's a better feeling? Having mimosas with your girlfriends, your besties on a Sunday morning, or having a Starbucks, getting yourself amped up for a big, cool, energetic meeting?
Mimosas. It's gotta be like, there is not, see, you have to be a woman to understand the answer to this question, Matt. Like, there is nothing more cathartic than getting with your girlfriends and drinking mimosas. And this has happened being completely wasted by 11 o'clock in the morning. Like, there is nothing better than that in the whole wide world. I'm a huge proponent of self-care. I get up every single morning, and the first thing that I do is tend to myself. I meditate, I pray, I write, I exercise before I give my time to anybody else, including my kids, right? But you got to have your tribe. Like your team is unbelievably important to you. Those mimosas are crucial.
Love the answer, and you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning. I'm with that. Okay, so next, would you rather have a really bougie dinner out at a fancy place and you're all dolled up, or comfort food at home?
Bougie, dolled up.
Me too, because I like getting dressed up. I like feeling cool, you know? Yeah, all right. That's awesome. Okay, how about this one? What do you have more fun at? The beginning or middle of happy hour or late night after the parties, you're having a late night party? Happy hour or late night?
You know, I'm going to say happy hour because I don't ever know my limit, right? So I always go in like, you know, I'm going to have like 1 or 2 drinks. And depending on what day it is, 1 or 2 drinks can have me feeling nothing. 1 or 2 drinks can have me feeling great. 1 or 2 drinks can have me feeling a mess and I'm taking an Uber home, right? So I feel like the beginning of happy hour is always like a good, sure, strong, I'm feeling really good and giddy. You never know where things are going to end up at the end of the night with me.
Totally. One of my friends said a lot of things can happen after 2 in the morning and most of them aren't good. So, okay, how about this? Would you rather have, what's a better feeling, getting a big promotion or buying a new house?
Yikes. Ooh, that's a hard one. I guess I would say getting the big promotion because the big promotion can get to the big house. Although I'm at the point now where I'm trying to push kids out and I see myself more of a penthouse type chick rather than a big house, right?
Get out of here. Mom's moving downtown, y'all.
Yes. You see me in 5 years, right? So I guess I would say the promotion because it leads to those other things in life that you want to obtain.
Okay. Last one. Are you more of a soft shell or hard shell taco?
Hard shell only.
Me too. I'll grill soft shells. I love that answer. Love it. And we love you, Ebony. Thank you so much for spending time to go through uncomfortable things with us. If there's things that we can do in the future to help you out, please let us know. We're going to keep having uncomfortable conversations, and we're just grateful for your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was an honor.
Okay. Talk soon.
Bye.